Good morning, sunshine, on this Sunday, February 21, 2021. Actually, it's not morning anymore. I'm Sabah Fakhoury for the Heart and Home podcast. A quick note, due to a technical glitch, not on my part, in yesterday's podcast, episode 57, I noticed that the last 13 minutes were not uploaded to Apple Podcasts and Breaker and perhaps other platforms. So if your episode is only 5 minutes long, I uploaded episode 57A so you can hear the rest of yesterday's episode. Perhaps it will be corrected at a later date, but for now, I didn't want to leave my listeners hanging. If you're interested in the Hay House Heal Summit, which ends tomorrow, but is available for purchase, 57A is the missing part of yesterday's podcast. Okay. Also this week, in addition to the Hay House Heal Summit, I was pleasantly surprised at the quality and quantity of information provided in the free 9-part docu-series offered by Whole TV. That's WHOLE.TV. This is one of many programs that it's being offered to bring in new members, of which I'm happy to report that I am signed up for the entire year. In trauma, it's entitled Heal Your Past, Transform Your Life. It's a brand new docu-series released this year. I really learned a lot. And I want to warn you, this episode may be long. I have so much I want to share because the production was so well presented that I feel confident this knowledge needs to reach you because trauma is the pain that is tearing the fabric of our society. And you might not even know you have it. First, there's 2 types of trauma, big T and little t. And you learn about that in this docu-series. It is a limited time, so if you still want to catch it, you can watch it before it goes down. In this series, you learn why we're living with trauma, how trauma affects and shows up differently for everyone. This is not a fluff piece. It presents stories of unbearable loss and insurmountable betrayal. The betrayal can be surmounted, and the patterns can be broken. If you subscribe to Whole.TV, you will receive resources and gain access to their experts to do that. And Whole.TV also covers breathwork, meditation, and yoga. I was just looking at their schedule for this week. They actually do have live classes noon and 1 and throughout the week for those same, things where you could follow along with someone who's going to teach you yoga and meditation. In addition to all the free resources that they provide for you when you become a member, and also the live and extended interviews that they have from the series and other series that they've also produced. So who needs this? Well, if you're suffering from fatigue, brain fog, depression, stiff joints, constant headaches, anxiety, bleeding gums, unexplainable weight gain, trouble sleeping, moodiness, or chronic disease. How many of those do you have? Of those 11 symptoms, you may have all of them, right? This program, as in others, reminds us to forgive ourselves. Forgive the betrayals of our past so you can set yourself free from your mental prison. Not always that easy, right? You owe it to yourself to get off the hamster wheel of life and relax. Your life is precious, and so is your time. Time with yourself, your children, loved ones, family, and friends, and even colleagues. This week, I recently reconnected with a friend, Carol, who I met through a business group called CEO Space at a meeting in Las Vegas, Nevada, back in 2013. She's in Chicago and I'm in Detroit. We're now on Clubhouse. Have you heard of that? And we talked for more than an hour on Friday. She shared a lot of valuable information about health and healing and new devices and methods and modalities practiced in other countries. She had hundreds of testimonials of the people that she has helped all over this country. It was time well spent. When you take the time to connect and be present, you learn things that you need. I believe the statement, when the student is ready, the teacher appears or arrives, something like that. I can't remember who said it, but I've heard it when I met Joel Roberts in Los Angeles, Les Brown, whom I also met in Los Angeles, and Adam Markel when I attended Peak Potential's events. I may have mentioned that I'm a closet conference junkie. I poured a lot of time, energy, money into educating myself when I decided to leave the corporate world. After working 30 plus years in 3 careers, advertising, journalism, and law, no, I wasn't an attorney, I just worked for them, I finally pursued my dreams and goals. I took a leap of faith with no plan. I knew in my heart, mind, and body that there was more to life than working 9 to 5. Well, it was actually more than that because we were overworked and underpaid. We're also underutilized. I knew I had other talents that weren't being utilized. I had to develop my creative side. I had amassed extraordinary time management and organizational as well as interpersonal skills. But I just wasn't satisfied, nor was I happy. I had difficult bosses, demanding and at times abusive. I was paid well, but not enough to carry the heavy burden of managing the life and workload of several people at work. I had no life outside of work. My days were spent performing for others in a circus that never ended. Through conferences, both in person and virtually, I found a new home with others who taught and thought about compassion and love and about our world and our planet. I also found peace. It's been a 7-year transitional period for me. Quieting the noise of this world was the best decision I made for myself. Now, for some of you, it may be 10, 20, 30, or 40 years of pain that you maybe are enduring. And you've learned to live with it, just like I did. You're not alone. I know this other story by a person by the name of David G. And he has a similar story of transitioning from the corporate world to teaching meditation at the Chopra Center. He got his name from Deepak Chopra. And you can find out more about quieting your mind through his book or audiobook, Secrets of Meditation, which is on Hay House app. It's an unlimited audio app, which I mentioned before that I purchased. It's a yearly subscription if you want, or I think you could also get it monthly. Like David G., Dr. Pedram Sojai, who is co-founder of the Trauma Docu-Series, shares his teachings in his book, The Urban Monk. He's also a filmmaker, a doctor of Oriental medicine, a Qigong master, a Taoist abbot, and an early practitioner of integrative medicine. That's not enough. He works with his good friend Nick Polizzi, creator of the series Remedy and Proven, among others, and the world's foremost health documentary series director. Together, they created Whole TV because they saw a need to provide people access to health professionals who had gone through similar experiences and are now helping others. They both host the trauma series on Whole TV. Now, this is not an app. You sign in. It's like a membership site that is at wholetv.com, and you get a password and you log in, and it's not through an app. So I've only spent 15 hours this week watching their 9-part docuseries, and already I feel free of unresolved trauma. Through their stories and pioneers in this series, they're sharing powerful lessons to begin healing and recovering from years of pain, going as far back to birth for those of you who may have been born premature or your mother's had a C-section. I was not. From the moment you were born, you have been exposed to trauma. Trauma, they define as unresolved pain. The pain of loss, the sting of disappointment, the terror of feeling unsafe. And a lot of people felt that this week, especially if you were in Texas in the path of that storm. Now, as adults, we consistently blow off, this pain, and we learn to shake it off. But children don't know how. And as a child, pain is absorbed into your body, and your body, you might not remember because you've repressed traumatic events. So there might be things that happened to you in your childhood that you might not even remember. So, these are things that you get to explore through their experts that they have that kind of teach you how to unravel it. So in episode 1, they talk about how you can tell if there's trauma in your body. And each episode is about an hour, a little bit over some of them. Episode 2 covers also emotional trauma. And it's very interesting because it talks about your memory, your neural system, and how you can try to remember if things are happening in your life that may be keeping you stuck. Why are you talking negatively about yourself? And just things that you might not be aware of. And it actually wants to talk to you about your trauma response, what you're doing, and maybe you might not be aware of it. But it happens because of chemical signals from distress that create these issues. So, episode 3 continues on with still emotional trauma. I Will Survive. The people that they interviewed have compelling stories that, some of them, of course, were in war. Some of them were in accidents. Some of them had cancer. Some of them had a child die. I was, someone that I know was actually in it, Morrissey, and she told a story that I had heard when I saw her speak in Chicago, and she doesn't talk about it often. In everything that I followed in her online work, she has a story that's very interesting that happened to her when she was in high school. And so she is also interviewed in this TV trauma series. Episode 3, as I mentioned, it's talking about survival and how, like, a lot of the people actually said that this bad thing that happened to them was the best thing that ever happened to them because they were able to heal from it and learn and grow. So you might not always think that things that happen to you are bad. People actually find them as blessings. And a lot of people I know, they always say, your message is in your mess. So maybe there's something that happened to you that you might help other people with, and you can share your experience. We've all had something happen to us. Episode 4, again, emotional trauma. It talks about release and overcoming. It talks about health disasters. It could be mental, physical, emotional. The age 3 is considered a turning point in child psychology. And it's one of the riskiest ages to experience a trauma. Now, I don't remember that far back. And maybe that's why they always say there's things that you might not remember and you may have repressed it in your mind. But I do have specific events that I remember that I, as if it was just yesterday. I know how it happened, when it happened, how I felt. Just something that happened that I don't know why. It just stuck with me. I mean, I think I'm going to save that and not share it now because I don't want to take away from this episode, but it was very interesting. They move on to episode 5 and they start to discuss now physical trauma. And they talk about your nervous system and how you could tell. You know, there's ways for your body to heal. And when you have physical trauma, you know, MRIs, they don't catch that. You know, they don't show you the damage that's been done. You know, and it's the same thing with emotional. You don't see those scars like you would physically. There's just things that happen to you if you're with an abusive partner, if you, you know, were in a bad marriage. There's so many things that happen to us that we just put up with and until we just can't take it anymore. I read one story of a woman that shared her experience of a 13-year marriage that she finally broke free from, of her husband that used to beat her like a punching bag. Now, she didn't live in the United States. She lived abroad, I think it's Sweden. She was a beautiful girl. And this was in another Facebook group that I was in. And she happened to post that and share a long post. And I thought, oh my goodness, you know, here's someone who experienced so much trauma and she had the courage to share her story with us in a private Facebook group that actually healed her. It helped her. She felt better when she shared it. You just get it off of your chest, off of your mind. It's what people do when they do like a brain dump or when they say, you know, write things down, keep a journal. All these things help. Besides, of course, being grateful and other practices such as meditation and slowing the heart and, you know, refocusing your mind on positive thoughts. Episode 6 continues with physical trauma on getting better all the time. They talk about a landmark study of nearly 10,000 participants about childhood trauma, and they really do go in depth and they talk about markers such as heart disease, strokes, depression, smoking habits, and even suicide. One woman, her husband did commit suicide, and she was a psychiatrist. So imagine that. She didn't even see the signs. So the pain that she's been, you know, had to suffer and endure because she couldn't even help her own husband who committed suicide. He had lost his job, and for whatever reason, he never talked about it. He never said anything to her about it. And he just pulled the trigger and he was gone. Episode 7 talks about societal trauma. That was probably my favorite. Also, episode 8 also continued about societal trauma. This is something that I'm very interested in and something that if you're like a social, like if you like to observe things that are happening in our society, and for me as, you know, a former journalist, someone who likes to know what's going on in the world, you know, keep your pulse on change, social changes, movements, new ideas. I found it very interesting on how, you know, the thing is that things happen in our life and we just put up with it, and they keep going on and on and on. And, they talk about gun violence and, just things that have been happening recently with Black Lives Matter, Me Too movement, and all these things that are a culmination of frustration in people's lives that have had to endure such pain for years. I mean, many of the people in the Me Too movement, they never even told anybody that they were raped. They were too ashamed. And these are people who have had to suffer quietly, just like the people that have been abused by the police force. And, it's just a pattern of things that have happened and people that have been killed. And after a while, you just can't take it anymore, and the people go out into the streets. So things just bubble up. And this is such a wake-up call, because it tells you that you cannot continue to live like this. You can't push down these feelings. They're making you sick. They're causing you not to be able to sleep. They're giving you heart disease and other ailments. So they just want you to be aware, to go back, to be able to know that you can heal yourself. You have to get to the root of what the problem is. And again, understand the brain, how it works, how to reprogram your thoughts. And then in the final episode 9, they talk about identifying your trauma. And you know that if you don't identify the problem, then you can't admit it. So that's the first step to healing. I just love the series. I loved learning about it. It's not a very sexy topic, I'll admit, but I'll tell you, it's so powerful. I feel so empowered. I've done, shadow work. I've dealt with a painful past. I've, written down my feelings. I've gone to therapy. I mean, there's just so much that I've done, and yet I'm still learning more, because there's more that you can do. It's not just a once and done, and it's like, okay, I'm healed, I'm done. Yeah, all right, let's move on. No, because there's layer after layer after layer of things that have happened. So you might resolve one issue, like let's say a relationship. Well, guess what? If you haven't actually healed that pain and that wound, we have a tendency to jump into a similar situation where we might pick the same type of partner, and it repeats itself. So if you find yourself getting into that type of pattern, then slow down, okay? There's things that you have to know, especially in a relationship, when you're looking for love. There's 5 basic A's, they tell us: attention, affection, appreciation, acceptance, and allowing. And if you're not getting part or all of that, then maybe you should rethink your relationship. I was talking to a high school friend, Bob, yesterday, and he had mentioned that in his interpersonal relationships, he had felt that his giving all the time to friends, coworkers, people in his life, he was always giving. Everybody was always calling, asking him for help. But he was so self-sufficient that he never reached out to other people to help them. Well, guess what? He got COVID, and he was sick for 2 weeks, and he took care of himself for 2 weeks. He didn't even call anybody. I don't know if you could anyways, but just imagine being alone, single, and having to get up and prepare food for you. Luckily, he said he was a Boy Scout, And he knew, and he was prepared, and he had meals prepared in the freezer, and all he had to do was just drag himself and put them in the microwave, and he could eat. Oh, thank goodness for the Cub Scouts. So there are so many areas that we are traumatized in. There could be sexual, physical abuse, neglect, abandonment, gaslighting. There's so much. There's emotional abuse. There are just so many areas. So how I manage my stress is I try to meditate. I learn to relax. A lot of people, they love to go walking, or there are runners. There are so many ways that you can relieve stress. But don't go to the bottle. Don't go out drinking with your friends. That's not the answer. Because alcoholism is actually another trauma. One person in the trauma series talked about how she felt great if she was drinking, and every day she would go out, have a few, she was great. Until one day she was coming home, and actually she said that this happened to her during the curfew after it was a curfew in Los Angeles. There was a beating. I want to say it was Rodney. This was years ago. Okay, this wasn't the more recent ones that have happened in Minneapolis and every other state that we've had, that people are taken to the streets with Black Lives Matters. But there was a curfew in California because someone had been killed, and I think it was Rodney King, if I remember. And she was living in San Francisco, and she decided that she was going to go out after 10 p.m. to go drinking because she wanted to, and she didn't care that there was a curfew. So she did, and she came back. She drove her bike. She didn't walk. This was in San Francisco, so you don't really need a car. And when she got home, she was tipsy, and she was trying to put her key in the door, and she was fumbling, and two men jumped her and beat her up and robbed her bike. She didn't say whether they had, sexually abused her or anything, but she was left for dead. And luckily for her, she was able to crawl into the apartment, but she realized how she had put her life in danger just because she just wanted to go and have that drink. And that's just one person that shared their story in this trauma series. Oh, they just have so much to teach us and to help us. So you can also binge eat. So, it's not just alcohol. You soothe your aching heart with food as well. As a disclaimer, as we always say, the content that's provided here and in other websites that I refer you to are based on research. They are true stories that are for educational purposes. They're not intended to diagnose you or prescribe, any medicines or medical or psychological condition. So just keep that in mind, that you should still seek professional help, see a doctor, someone you feel comfortable with, a healthcare professional that's qualified, and from there you can supplement what you're learning and working through with your doctor with additional material on your own, because you might need more than 1 hour a week, or I don't know how many times you might go to see a therapist. You might need a friend. You might need to know more. You might want to share, with somebody else. So just keep in mind that these are things that are so important to your life, to living a healthy life. And there's more. They have a whole nother series on exhausted, and that is something I need to know more about. That's the whole reason why I left the corporate world, because I was burnt out. But anyways, that's enough for today. I've talked to you about some important tools. If you would like to learn more, I hope that you do. Meanwhile, I will be attending a full day, a Zoom online course tomorrow with a woman who was a waitress at Denny's. She started a company that was called It Cosmetics, sold it for 1.2 billion, and is now in the billionaire club. She has a book coming out on Tuesday called Believe It. And tomorrow, if you want to register, she does have a free all-day seminar with such huge people such as Robin Roberts from Good Morning America, Tony Robbins, the founder of Spanx, and many other motivational speakers. All this is available to you for free. If you want, you can also sign up to be with Zoom and go VIP. There's a minimal fee, and you get a chance to interact and have questions that you might be able to ask some of the speakers. You'll be able to get the replays, and you will also get some bonuses. So that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. And of course, I will be giving you a recap of that day because you know I'm excited about that. There's one more day of the Heal Summit tomorrow, Monday, February 22. They are going to have their third and final live webinar with Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor. And you might have heard of her. I believe that Oprah had once interviewed her. She was a Harvard-trained neuroanatomist, and of course, a popular TED Talk speaker. So you might be able to find her on YouTube as well. But the story of Dr. Jill is that in 1996, she suffered a massive stroke and spent the next 8 years recovering her ability to think, talk, and walk. She is a brain researcher. Her stroke gave her the incredible opportunity to study the brain from the inside out. And this has led her even deeper quest to understand how you can work with your brain to promote healing. So this live Q&A with Heal director Kelly Noonan-Gores and Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor is part of this year's Hay House Heal Summit. You can watch it for free, the summit lessons, and then if you want, you can purchase it. It's tomorrow at noon Pacific time, 3 Eastern. But you do have to be registered in order for you to have the link to watch it. So you can find that at the hayhouse.com website. So I'm going to have to catch that replay myself because I'm going to be on Zoom with Jamie Kern Lima, her big event called Being Unstoppable. If you haven't heard about it and you haven't seen my posts on Instagram, in my Facebook, and Twitter, go to beingunstoppable.com if you could like to learn more. I wish you a great week and much love and happiness. And don't worry, everything's going to be okay.